Alex, thank you so much for joining us all the way from England. This is really great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
So we know that you've been freelancing and working hard in England covering the FA WSL. So how long have you been, in England? How long have you been freelancing and covering the league?
So I've been in England just a little over a year now.
Okay.
Got here last August to do my master's in sports journalism at St. Mary's University, and I kind of just hit the ground running really when I came here. I came here with the purpose of kind of following women's football here, well, women's soccer, I guess, as you would call it. Um, I kind of just started right away. I knew that's what I came here for. It was pretty much the sole reason of me coming to England. The football here is it's absolutely amazing, and especially in London. I had Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. I had West Ham. Just at my front door, really. Last year, living around university, the Chelsea Stadium was a 10-minute walk from my flat. So
Oh, wow.
it was grand. But now I just finished my master's up, and I've kind of gone into the adult world and kind of have to start looking for jobs and whatnot. So it's a bit more hands-on now than it was during the semester, but I'm obviously really enjoying it. Today is a women's football weekend. There's 4 matches on today, back to back to back, no overlapping. So you kind of just sit down on the couch and watch football for the entire day,
Nice.
which is nice. So I've been enjoying it, to say the least. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, you kind of answered the question I was going to ask, is whether I guess it was twofold. I was going to say, did you go to England to attend school and then decided freelancing on the side since you were studying journalism, or did you go for the football? But it does sound like it was a little twofold, which makes sense. Obviously it's Corona, but how has been your experience covering the FA WSL so far? It is kind of a young league. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's been grand. I mean, as you said, it's fairly not, it's, I wouldn't say new, but it is, women's football is still growing here, and it's not as grandiose as you would say the Premier League, for example. So the access to the league itself is really, it's right there. I mean, I just got in with my master's. We have an online kind of magazine that we write for, and I would just apply for accreditation for the Women's Super League, and I would get it. And then as I started showing up to games, I kind of just built up my own network and everything, and I kind of made it easier for myself to keep going and keep interviewing players. I mean, I've interviewed, Kristen Press, Tobin Heath already.
Oh, wow.
They're a couple of my favorite players, and I've already done that. So the access here is absolutely amazing. If you know that's what you want to do, people recognize that, and they know that you mean well, and you're not just there to kind of boost yourself up for men's football, for example. There's 2 types of people, and if you're on the right side, you do make things a lot easier for you to kind of fit in the WSL and the kind of women's football world quite well.
That's really cool. I mean, you just said like you're done with school, you're fresh out of your master's, and I did a graduate diploma in journalism at Concordia.
Okay.
And then I you hit the ground running, and even during the diploma I was like trying to freelance and like get your name out there. So now you're doing that kind of full time. So, what has that experience been like, looking for work? I mean, you mentioned, the WSL, probably they want to have a lot of coverage, right? So there's an opening there, but what does a day kind of look like for you as a freelancer, just trying to get the work done, and what your preparation looks like?
So obviously things have changed quite a bit with COVID. A lot of for example, press conferences are all done via Zoom. So that's perhaps actually been one of the few advantages that COVID has brought in terms of journalism and football coverage. So on a regular press conference, you would attend in person, you would go to the stadium, and you would sit there and listen to the coach speak. Whereas now, I can attend press conferences in Manchester, and I don't have to do the 4-hour drive up to attend that press conference. And you have maybe 2-3 press conferences a day at times. So that's definitely changed. I've actually had a lot more opportunities to speak to different people that I probably wouldn't have on a normal basis. I currently work for VAVEL. So we have a lot of people up in Manchester. We would have sent them instead of me. So I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to speak to Kristen and Tobin, for example. But in terms of, a normal day, depends if you go to the match in person or not, which I haven't had the opportunity to do as much, mostly because I'm my car at the moment, I'm not using it, so it's a bit more difficult to get to matches. Taking the train isn't always the most convenient way. A half an hour drive will take you hours on the train, so it's the best, especially if the game kicks off at night. You're back at 1 a.m. to I've been doing a lot from home, which is definitely different from the past year where I've actually been attending matches in person. Post match, the players come off the pitch, the coach comes off the pitch, and you just do a huddle of like 7 journalists. You all have a phone and you're asking questions. Now that's not possible. Even if you go to the stadium, the post match press conference is on Zoom. So the actual match day experience has changed a lot, but we're one of the lucky ones that are still able to actually go watch live football. Fans still aren't able to go, and kind of a privilege at this point. So things before COVID and post COVID have definitely changed quite a bit.
Seriously, but it sounds like you've found a lot of positive in it, which is nice, because I feel just the state of the world at this moment and the state of sports in this pandemic, there's a lot of negative sides, but do you think this is going to be some positive changes that are going to be long term, like having this kind of in the scrum taking turns via Zoom to access the player? Do you think this is something that's going to continue in the future, or you think you guys are going to go back to just scrums fighting to get access and get a question?
I'm not entirely sure. There was talk that there might be kind of upholding this post conference Zoom call. But I think this week especially, it's been quite a busy week. The women's football weekend is it's a weekend where there's no men's football at all. So there's a lot of focus on the women's game. So this weekend in particular, there was a lot of Zoom calls that we had to do during the week. And, by Thursday and Friday, we're all kind of tired of Zoom calls and raising the hand button and all that stuff. So I think half of us, we appreciate the convenience that it gives us, and being able to, like I mentioned, just do a lot more things that we weren't able to do physically in person. But in terms of just the Zoom calls, I think we're all kind of tired of it. So I don't know what to think, whether I kind of miss the scrums and elbowing, out of the way.
I think the social interaction, it's different, right? And communicating with players that way too, you can read body language a little bit more, but kind of going back to your start, you moved to England with, I guess, the idea of pursuing journalism specifically for women's soccer. And obviously in North America, we don't have kind of that emphasis on football in general. Do you feel like there are more opportunities to cover women's soccer since it's a little bit more niche? It did seem like it was kind of simple for you to walk in and pursue this goal. Do you think it's because it's a women's sport, and in general, I play hockey, we're always kind of craving the media attention? Do you think it's a little bit easier, or do you think it's just challenging because it's small and we're trying to grow it?
I think it depends. I think with me, I was able to kind of, as you said, like walk in so easily, I think because I had the right intentions. And if everyone in the women's football world here, like, they know women's football, I'm actually one of the ones that least know it. These journalists have been here, they've been covering it for years and years and years. So I know less than they do. But if you come in with the intention, and if you come in with the right questions, if you go into these scrums and you ask if you ask just a stupid question that kind of calls you out for not knowing women's football or watching it regularly, it's really easy to pick up on that. So I think it's easy if you want to be there, and if you have the right intentions, and if you actually do your homework and you know what to do, which luckily for me, I love football. I have Hispanic roots, and football is pretty much in my blood. So it was quite easy for me, I think, because I had the right intentions, and I actually watch football and I support the women as well. So in that aspect, yes. And I see what you're saying in terms of media attention. You don't want as much media attention, but you want the right media attention. Especially, I did an interview with Jana Hefford from the PWHP. I think that I was at like the beginning of lockdown.
No way. Okay.
Yeah. So I think with her it was kind of the same. I had the right intention. I wanted to tell the story of the fact that the Canadian Women's League folded, and now all these players are without a league. The US league isn't even close to comparison to the Canadian one. So I think if you have that right intention, it's quite easy for you to fit in, and they recognize that and they appreciate it more than potentially the men do.
Yeah, because we could pick up on the same questions. Like you just hopped on this story because the league just folded. Like in our instance, like the league folded and you had the same question that mainstream media has asked 17 times, and I'm kind of like, where were you like 6 months ago, like when we needed some sort of. So I see what you're saying though, like if you have the passion, you could pursue this in the women's league. And I guess this kind of implies that you have no intentions. Do you have any intentions of covering like women or men's sports, or you're just like all the way women's football?
No, I do love the men. So I somehow managed to get Premier League accreditation, which I haven't used yet.
Awesome.
But it's just like, that's just again, as a football fan.
Yeah.
As a football fan, covering the men's league is obviously it's a big step in my career in general. It's a big advantage, big privilege that I get to do. But I think in the women's game, I have a bit more passion because, they are the underdogs compared to the men, essentially. They need all the help that they can get. And then going back to the right media attention, not everyone has the right intentions, has the right background to be able to kind of promote the women's game as effectively as someone else. So I think knowing that I am in a good position to do that, and like knowing that I am a good person to do that, I kind of just stick to the women's game a bit more. But I still watch, when there's not a women's football week, and I do still sit on my ass all day long watching men's football. So for me, it's just football in general, but the working part of it, I am a bit more passionate, about promoting the women's sport.
I love that you brought up intention, because it's the same like Mel said in women's hockey. It's in women's sports in general. If you're not going in with the right intentions, you're not going to ask the right questions, and you'll lose a lot of respect right away. But then you're also sharing information to people who don't know anything about women's sports, and it's not that it's not right, but it's not the full picture, right? So I really love that you brought that up. And you mentioned that you've had the opportunity to interview stars like Tobin Heath and Kristen Press, and so I wanted to ask you, because I did see, I don't really follow women's soccer that closely yet. It's something that I've been wanting to do more so, and I've observed that a lot of U.S. women's national team players have kind of migrated over to England this season. So I wanted to get your impressions on that. Do you think this is an indication of the league's progression? Is this simply a product of the pandemic and maybe what's happening in the U.S.? I want your thoughts on this influx of star players in the FA WSL.
I think it's a combination of both, essentially. They have mentioned very explicitly that without COVID, they wouldn't have been here at all. Because of COVID, the NWSL didn't get a go-ahead. They just played a mini tournament of about 2 weeks and a half, I think. And they made a kind of a mini, like, winter series, I guess, autumn series, you can call it. And it wasn't enough competitive time for a lot of these people. They have an Olympics coming up next year. They need regular competitive time if they're going to go out and perform.
Right.
So I think that was the main reason why a lot of the players came to the WSL. Today we saw Manchester Derby. You saw Kristen Press, Tobin Heath starting 11, Sam Ewis, and then Roosevelt came on. I don't know. Didn't think she came on, actually. I was mistaken there. But essentially 4 players on the pitch, on the bench, which you would have never seen if it wasn't for COVID. And then again, one of the biggest ones, Alex Morgan, coming to Tottenham. That caused the big uproar. Yeah, definitely. There's been Alex Morgan watched every single weekend. So like if you watched, I think it was one of the first matches that she was on the bench for. I don't know. Yeah, she was on the bench for Arsenal Tottenham. That's a huge match. It's a North London derby. It's one of the biggest matches here in England, just in general. And she didn't play at all. She was on the bench, freezing, with like 3 layers of coats on, and all the cameras were on her. And everyone was kind of, complaining, but at the same time laughing, taking digs at BBC for, just kind of just focusing on Alex Morgan. She's not even on the pitch.
I mean, that's kind of just a mainstream media women's sports fault all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
There are other players and
so it's been kind of a hit and miss. Tobin has actually been really she's been playing pretty much every match for Manchester United since she's been able to. Sam Ewis as well. Sam Ewis scored in the FA Cup final. That was huge. Tobin she scored the first goal in the Manchester derby today. Those two
I just saw that highlight.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was absolutely ridiculous. Kristen Press literally just stepped out of the way and just let her have it.
Yeah, and man, the ball like took some crazy curves. I was like, holy shit.
It was just, it curved, it hit the bottom of the crossbar. Oh, it couldn't have been anymore. I think that was just purely out of anger. That was the most satisfying part. She hit that ball as hard as she could.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going through the net.
Yeah, exactly. No, so they've been, a few of them have been more effective than others. Alex Morgan has just started to play her first, she played her first 20 minutes last week. It was at the end of a really scrappy game, so there was only so much she can do. And it was kind of funny because everyone was expecting this wow factor, and she just had a kid. She's not fully fit yet, and you can tell that she's not at the top of her game. She hasn't played a match in like almost a year now. So it's been hit and miss, but I think overall it's been a real indicator of how big the English league is growing and where it's at right now,
which is excellent. I mean, it's like one of the few leagues that, like, I guess we could model maybe professional hockey against, along with WNBA. Like, it's always nice seeing other women's leagues succeed. I mean, the rugby league in Australia on the women's side is excellent as well. I'm curious, you've been spent a year now in England doing, kind of pursuing your dream. Is it what you expected? Is it everything you wanted, or has anything surprised you about it?
I think it's been everything I wanted. Well, for the most part, professionally.
Yeah.
COVID obviously stopped a lot of opportunities that maybe I could have gotten over the summer, like work experiences and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I'm still a bit, not upset about that at all. I've gotten over that entirely. So it's like it's a hit or miss. But overall, England is really, really fun in terms of football, which oddly my life still revolves around on and off professionally. I play on a team here, so I play every Sunday myself. Okay. I get to train every Tuesday and Friday, and Sunday I played in university in Montreal for Concordia.
Right.
So that was like, that was training 4 days a week, matches 2 days a week, as I assume, Montreal kind of at the end was obviously the intense training session as well. But here, you kind of have one training session a week. You play on a Sunday, and then after you go to the pub and you watch football and you get drinks.
Yeah, different vibe.
So yeah, so in terms of just like the relax, I guess they're a bit more relaxed here in terms of which honestly I get a bit frustrated about as well, because I have been growing up, in the North America kind of varsity aspect where we are go. We have gym sessions, we have training sessions, and you're kind of used to being that elite athlete, I suppose, whereas here they don't, and it kind of pisses me off sometimes. I just get in my own head about it. But overall, I do miss food in North America. There's a lot more diversity in food.
Really?
And I must say that the stereotypical thing that English food sucks is kind of true.
That's so great.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love the honesty in that answer.
Yeah, I feel bad saying it, but it is. Yeah, especially Montreal was a very diverse city, and you can get whatever food you want delivered to your door. I don't know if you've had Chef on Call.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Who hasn't?
I miss that terribly. I thought about it the other day, and I was like, I miss Chef on Call so much.
Did you try place an order? They were like, you're not in our geographic.
Yeah. Just send it on the plane. I'll pay extra for it if you want.
Exactly.
There's a lot of little things from Montreal specifically that I miss a lot that you don't really get here unless you're in central London. But even that, it's a very different vibe. But overall, on the football aspect of it, I couldn't be happier.
Well, it looks like you're really living and breathing football like all the time, which seems like it's what you wanted. So in your last year, what would you say was maybe the biggest learning curve in terms of, your job? Once you're out of school, did you feel like, okay, like this is very much similar to what I was doing before? Or, was there an adjustment that you need to make getting out of school, going into the professional world?
I think it was a bit of both, really. In terms, like I mentioned, my passion for women's football was always there. So it's on that aspect of it, I just kind of kept doing what I was doing while I was in school. But then on the professional aspect of it, in terms of the actual journalism, I knew there was still a few things that I have to learn, and there is still a lot of things that I have to learn. I just have to, at the moment, I'm kind of just, job applications have been terrible for everyone during these times. So now it's just about, getting myself into that professional environment that's perhaps not working from home, that I'm able to do a bit more hands-on, socializing in an office, for example. Yeah. So now it's just about getting myself into a professional setting where I can actually learn a lot more from people that are higher up from me.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I think it's just that I know that I still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to grow. I'm just trying to fit myself into an environment where I actually can.
Yeah. Finding the right mentors and stuff, it's definitely challenging, especially via Zoom all the time.
Yeah, it's not the same.
You learn a lot from like the side conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Just like the water jug conversation with a colleague, or like you want to grab a drink after work, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of awkward doing that over like Twitter or Zoom. It's like, hey, you want to have a call?
Yeah, you have to plan these. I'm looking for a mentor. Can we schedule a session?
Exactly.
But I mean, you kind of brought it up. You played at Concordia with the Stingers, and before that, you played in Chile as well. So you kind of grew up with that fire and passion. We kind of do want to address your playing career. So how is it like coming from Chile, playing with the professional league there, and starting in North America? Was the soccer different? Was the level different? Was it an adjustment period? And I guess, what did you think of that experience in general?
I think, the football is very, very different. That's partly why I kind of came to England. Okay. I do love the NWSL, and I do love, well, I can't really say I love the MLS, but, football is football. At the end of the day, I'll watch it no matter what. But the style of football in North America is very different to the one that you see in Europe, the one you see in South America. South Americans and Europeans are a lot more tactical focused, which I enjoy a bit more. I rather see like pretty football rather than just like attack elbows, slide tackles everywhere, which I think is what you see in North America a lot. So yeah, growing up, I grew up in the States a bit, and then played in Canada, obviously, which it was a very feisty league, to say the least.
Okay.
So
a little bit more hockey-esque.
Yeah, so I have gone flying on the sidelines a few times, and it's just it was a big adjustment because in Chile they're a lot more skillful, they're technical, they're tactical. It is feisty, probably even a bit more dirtier than it is in the States, but it is very tactical. You don't press all the time, you don't go up to someone all the time, you let them have the ball, you keep the ball for a certain amount of time. But in the States and in Canada, it's go all the time. Someone gets the ball, you go push them off the ball. Someone else gets the ball, the next person goes off and push. You have no time on the ball. So that was a big adjustment. And then the other adjustment I had kind of was, in Chile, it's still, women's football is still very underlooked, and it's still a very, like, I would say, like, probably, it's still a sexist country in terms of, like, men are better, men do this better, women are kind of just, like, not looked down on, essentially, but there's still a lot of problems in terms of equality. But the women's national team has done amazing, and the league has improved a lot. But when I was there, that was in 2018, 2017, I think. When I was there, the league, it was good in terms of quality, but the visibility wasn't there. These teams are streaming their own matches on their Facebook streams. In terms of, pitch time, you share it with, it's like a municipal pitch. It's not an actual stadium. And the things you get, at Concordia, I would get 3 pairs of shorts, 3 pairs of training tops, 3 pairs of socks, and you get like a hoodie, and then you get a beanie, and then you get sweatpants, and you get another jacket, and a duffel bag, and a backpack, and you get all these things. And in Chile, all I got was like a pair of joggers, and that's about it. So the difference, it was quite entertaining for me in terms of, seeing the difference of, these girls play. They all have, some of them have full-time jobs, and they still go out to play it, 3-4 times a week just because they love it. And I think that was a big difference that I saw between both leagues, was that, these girls do it for fun, and they do it because they love it for no other reason. Whereas in the States, you play it because you're good at it. Yeah. If that makes sense. If you're physical enough, if you're strong enough, if you're fast enough, all right, you're fit to play soccer in that point. But it's not, not all the girls love to play. Not all the girls watch football all the time. So it's a bit of a different environment. Whereas here it's like, it's the opposite. You know, everyone watches football, everyone loves football, everyone, like I said, after the game you just go watch more football. But then the physical aspect and the athletic aspect of it, I guess, is very different than North America.
I mean, I guess, you know, you kind of addressed it in one of your articles about kind of the disparity between women's football and men's football in Chile as far as like resource allocations. It has been improving. It sounds like you said they've done an amazing job now. Are you kind of hopeful in general with, I guess, football in Chile as far as this discrepancy between the men's and women's leagues as far as resources? You think it's kind of a changing tide soon, or?
I wouldn't, maybe not soon. You know, probably we would expect it to be sooner than later, but I don't know if that would be entirely realistic, I guess. Not because of women and men, but because at the moment, you know, the men's league and the men's national team kind of finds itself in a really, really bad position in terms of financial, in terms of not scandals, sort of say, but, you know, just the leadership in the federation don't find themselves in the greatest moment in their history at the moment. So I think, but in terms of that, you know, despite that, the women's league has been growing a lot. 2 years ago now, they addressed the first women's professional leagues in football. So, you know, these girls are able to, you know, essentially quit their jobs, you know, quit having to find other things and be able to focus on their football entirely. And that's all a lot of national team players come back to Chile to play because it was actually feasible to play there and for it to be highly competitive. But, you know, again, like COVID saw the kind of differences between the men and the women. The women took a few months later than the men did to get back. But, you know, they are back. There's a lot of, with the help of a lot of fans, there's a new association created by one of the players. You know, they're dealing with broadcasting rights because the league doesn't want to. So, you know, it's a lot of people have taken matters into their own hands, which is nice to see, and they're actually getting a lot of response from, you know, these big channels. I know there's a couple of games that have been in the past few weeks free to air on one of the main channels on national television.
Wow, that's huge. I mean, it seems small, but it's huge, and it's like a testament to kind of grassroots organizations, and that, you know, a group of women get together, we could get anything done.
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of, you know, what the PWHP is doing. You know?
Yeah, we're like
badass women, you know.
We're like, fuck it, we're getting it done.
Yeah, exactly.
Grinding it out.
So you gotta do what you gotta do.
Exactly. Well, I was reading in that article in the Link newspaper that was written about you a while ago that your dad also played throwback, right? Your dad also played soccer in Chile. So I was wondering, you know, I'm guessing he was a big influence on what got you into soccer, but, you know, were there any other players, or, you know, did you have any other idols that you looked up to?
Yeah, I think my dad was, you know, that he was probably the biggest influence in my footballing career in general. Now I know a bit more than him, which is kind of satisfying. But, you know, like, my entire family is just football switched on. You know, my mom probably watches a lot more Chile games than I do. You know, she not even in Chile, you know, I was born in Boston, so we're big, like, you know, Patriots fans and stuff. So she watches all the games. So she's very sports switched on, specifically football. You know, we watch all the World Cup games, and with my family, you know, we paint our faces even if we're just watching the game at home.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
So yeah, like, football has been a part of my life since I was little. You know, I was kicking it. My dad made me kick a ball since I was a baby. You know, I was in like a full blown like football kit as like even before I could stand up.
Just tiny little shin pads too.
Yeah. No, but sadly, I do have a photo of me, and my mom used to put my shin pads over my socks. And I've
no!
Yeah.
Alex, like, I used to play soccer, but that's terrible swag.
No, I'm still mad at my mother for doing that to me. I can't believe she made me dress up like that. It was like, oh my God, no. It was, I mean, the outfit itself was terrible. I mean, like, I think the shorts were like silver and shiny.
Oh yeah, that was the style.
And then on top of that, it was my shin pads over my socks, and I've never forgiven her for that as of today. So it's been terrible. So yeah, football has been, you know, since I was a little kid, I would just go to the park and play football with my dad. We would do challenges. It was just me kicking the ball around with him, and I hate to say, but he is really good at football. So like, we would play the crossbar challenge, and whoever, once I was older, you know, and started working, we would bet lunch or dinner or something.
Awesome.
And he would kind of make it easier for me, and he would have to take the kicks from the halfway line, but he would still beat me.
Oh.
Yeah, that didn't help. So yeah, I think my dad was probably the biggest influence in terms of me. Yeah, he was the one that would always be up for going to play a kick around with me. He would sit down, every time he sat down and watched TV, he would just put on the TV and just watch whatever game was on. So with the passion and the interest of paying attention to things that a lot of people don't pay attention to, it was all down to my dad. But the passion itself was, I think, down to my parents and my entire family, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the environment you grew up in, and
yeah,
it sounds like, I mean, you watch a lot of football, you play it. Do you think like playing gives you like a different perspective as a journalist? I know when you play a sport, you kind of understand different nuances, but also like watching a sport gives you a different perspective too. So do you kind of write or observe the game differently because you've played?
I would like to think so. Just because, if I watch like even the men's game, for example, someone gets kicked, but it's with the studs. You don't know how painful that is unless you actually experience it.
Yeah, it's true.
And with sometimes the comments that people make, it's like, they've never experienced that kick before.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to think that, I have a bit more of an edge compared to other journalists who essentially, I mean, they're all great journalists, it doesn't take anything away from them, but, they are just fans of the game and haven't actually been involved with the game at a certain level and haven't experienced a lot of things that, the players that they're talking to have experienced. So I think potentially it does give me a little bit of an edge. And I'm also a bit more into the tactical side of football, which makes, I am a complete, you can probably see it by this interview, I'm a complete football nerd.
That's
just
awesome.
Like, I love it. So like things that like tactics and the way people play, and I pick up on quite a few things that perhaps other people don't. So I do think that maybe playing gives you a bit better of an angle to it. Maybe I can criticize a bit better than a few people and maybe get away with it. So yeah, I think playing does give me a certain kind of advantage over the ones who haven't played at a high level yet.
Yeah.
Well, we're approaching the end of our interview, but as someone who's been playing her whole life, who watches and whatnot, what are your thoughts a bit on the future of women's soccer? It's a bit of a broad question. Obviously, there are different leagues around the world, and they're all kind of moving at their own pace. But with the NWSL expanding in North America, with the FA WSL attracting these star players, sure, out of circumstance and the pandemic, but that's likely helping a lot with the league in terms of attracting more viewers and whatnot. Where do you see things going from here when it comes to women's soccer?
I can only see things going up, really. That's just all around the world. In South America as well, there is perhaps a lot more to improve on than other places, but it is going up. Essentially, there's a lot more just viewership, just a lot more visibility of football down there. And then, as you said, the NWSL is expanding, so that's only good. And perhaps having a team like LA City, Angel City, might draw back a player like Kristen Press to go play at home. And the WSL, that's just, I think it's probably the best league in the world right now. Not only in terms of the players that come, but in just terms of professionalism. There's a lot of the clubs, I wouldn't say, not all of them, there is still a big gap between the top and the bottom. But, it's getting more and more common for the women's teams to train in the same place as the men's teams. That is huge. But, it can only get better from now. And it's going to be exciting. It's Lyon has won the Champions League 5 years in a row now. So, it's going to be exciting because now people are going to knock them off the throne. And you're going to see different winners in different leagues. So, I think, and then on top of that, that's only going to be reflected on the national team. So I think it's only just going to get more exciting from now on.
Yeah, and I think just in general, like, teams around the world have done such a good job with like their own personal like social medias and stuff, accessing kind of these untapped markets and really encouraging young women. I think we're kind of just seeing that across the board in all women's league, and I mean, women's soccer is not an exception. They're doing incredible work just trying to get younger people to continue to play and really not accept mediocrity as far as resource allocation. Like we're obviously mainstream media, we're seeing it with the US national team, but teams across the world are fighting for the same thing, like the Chile women's team as well. So I don't know, I'm just hopeful for all of women's sports, and you know, I encourage you to continue to strive, because you know that league really needs journalists like you who are passionate about the sport and passionate about moving the sport forward. So I commend you for your work, and I hope COVID hopefully resolves itself sometime soon, so that you can grow your network and really go after it. But keep up the hard work at the moment.
Yeah, thanks. You know, to you too as well with the PWHP. Obviously, that's huge that's a huge thing to be part of. And then Safia, for the podcast as well. You know, it is big. It's not something you see common in terms of like just a regular conversation between sports and sports media. The connection there is quite nice. Yeah.
We appreciate it. For anyone listening, you know, where can they find you on social media? Anything you want to plug? I know you have a podcast.
The podcast probably isn't as regular as I would like it to be at the moment.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it is a lot of time. But my Twitter is Alex Ibaceta 23. That's probably I'm most active on there. So.
All right. Well, check it out, guys.